All right, everybody, I see that we are live here. Welcome to the live stream, the European Appreciation Edition of the broadcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on a Saturday. I know everybody's been waiting for us to do this for quite some time. Happy to be here. Going to give it a minute for everything to load on my control panel. A little bit of trance music on the entryway, because you never can tell how long it takes to load the live stream. Hope everybody is doing well today. Happy European UK Appreciation Day. Today, I wanted to do a few things. I wanted to talk about the dollar melt up and what is happening to the price of silver. I'll explain that. I'll walk through it and talk about the dollar melt up that I referred back to all the way back to 2018. And then we're going to cover some cool memes on all the news of the week that's been going on. And of course, I will sit right here and take your questions as well. So why don't we go ahead and get this share started. And we'll get right to it. All right, here we go. So I wanted to start off with Nick Laird's site, one that I love and that we talk about all the time here on the channel. Essentially, he charts a lot of different things on the gold and silver markets, and he has a really cool chart on the silver currency index, which I wanted to talk to you about. Here he's got something, he's got silver priced in the top 20 countries, top 20 currencies, ranked by GDP and compared to 1970. So he set 1970 as the index value, drew out this chart, and what we're looking at is what silver is priced in those top 20 currencies. This is important because it shows us that overall against the broad market of currencies, silver is in an uptrend. You can see here it hit a low. I want to say between 2015 and 2016, it hit, at least a low, at least dating back to 2011. And now we're in a nice little uptrend here. Silver is at 4,400 on the chart. It touched on 5,000 at the very beginning of the year. So it touched on 2012 highs. And then, of course, we're not that far from 2011 highs for silver priced in other currencies. And I think this is pretty important because it shows that overall against fiat currencies, silver's doing pretty well. And a lot of times when we're looking at the Western markets and we're really focusing on the dollar price of silver, we're not really paying attention to what silver is actually priced around the world. And that matters because people are buying silver for investment, they're buying it for industry, so on and so forth. And it is important to look at the broad currency complex. The currency markets are really dominated by the Western markets. They're dominated by COMEX. They're dominated by, that Western market. And so we tend to focus on US dollar terms, but overall they're doing pretty well. It's just in US dollar terms or not. And we're going to talk about why. I'm going to talk about why in US dollar terms, silver is not doing as well. And if you just look at that dollar price, you're just looking at the spot price of silver as priced in dollars, it's going to get really, really confusing. So we're going to go look at the US dollar index. The dollar is in a decided uptrend, as you can see here on this Yahoo Finance chart. Let me go back and reload it so we get a better, here we go. So for some reason that's scrolling off the end. So let's go to modern day. We're sitting in a print of about 92.77. Overall, that's a pretty good number. Definitely in an uptrend dating back to about 2013, 2014 when we hit a low here. Of course, right after the tech crisis, we had a strong dollar. We're not quite at that level of dollar related to other currencies, but the US dollar index is a comparison of the dollar against other currencies. So against the euro, against the pound, all this basket of other major currencies across the world. And when you're looking at this US dollar index, we tend to think of it as the strength of the dollar relative to everything else, the commodities we buy and all of those things. And it's not necessarily, it's relative to the other currencies and then relative to everything that we buy. And that's really what the US dollar index is. And when the US dollar is strong, and it is in a relative period of strength here over the last 30 years, when the US dollar is strong, that tends to misprice some commodities and things and tends to downplay some of their prices. And the reason is because the US dollar is a world reserve currency and a lot of trade goes through the world reserve currency. If we go to another chart here on Nick Laird's site and we compare it versus inflation, you can see that CPI adjusted silver is super cheap. Because you have the strong dollar and you've had all of this inflation, we're sitting, dating back to 1720. This is about a 300-year chart. We're lower than prices would have been in 1720. In today's dollar terms, silver would have been 100 bucks an ounce. And right now we're sitting at like 25, 26 bucks or whatever it is. So, and this is just CPI. We're not talking about real inflation. I don't believe CPI is real inflation. I think it's a muted value of inflation. But compared with just the CPI, the government CPI, we're at about a quarter of what silver inflation adjusted value is dating back 300 years. And it's the inflation hiding what the true value of silver is. So I wanted to talk a moment about why it matters. And I've kind of talked about this with regard to the repo market. And I wrote an article in 2018 called Why Continuing Dollar Melt-Up May Cause a Stock Market Decline. And this actually happened about a year or so after I wrote the article, although the stock market has continued to climb because a lot of the money is going into the stock market. But there are reasons why the dollar melt-up does affect markets. So the main point that I wanted to make here is that we have a lot of dollar-denominated debt. A lot of this dollar-denominated debt is held overseas. So what happens is dollars have to get extinguished in order to pay off that debt. And when you're talking trillions and trillions of debt, there's a pull on the dollar. And when there's a pull on the dollar to finance that overseas debt for all of this trade that's done in US dollar terms, and creates all this international debt, it causes the price of the dollar to rise. That's why you see the dollar going up here, because during the run up to the tech crisis, we were doing really well. The economy was overheated, really. It was heating up, it was overheated, and we had a high in the dollar. Now we're headed up to another high, at least within the last 20 years. And so the dollar is very strong compared to other currencies. And what that does is it causes other currencies to be weak. So we know what's happened with the Turkish lira. We know what's happened with the Argentinian and some of the other currencies around the world. They're weaker because the dollar is the one that's traded internationally. It's a world reserve currency. So I wrote back in 2018, and this is basically what we're saying now. It's no surprise that as the US dollar has strengthened, currencies in Turkey, Mexico, and Argentina have struggled. Rising interest rates have caused increased demand for US dollars and there's three main reasons. I'm going to share those with you today. Increased finance costs require more dollars for servicing debt. Capital inflows to emerging markets decrease as the dollar rises, causing more exchange out of other currencies into the dollar. In other words, more dollar demand. And the third one is that investors move money from foreign banks to US banks to take advantage of newly found yield. So if they feel that there's yield in the US, then they're going to go over to the US and they're going to trade in dollars. And that's exactly what happened. And essentially what that means is that that silver is priced cheaply in dollars, but it's not priced cheaply in other currencies. The other currencies are weak compared to the dollar, as I wrote in 2018, about 2.5, almost 3 years ago in Seeking Alpha. So that when you see them in other currencies, the silver price is high, but when you see it in dollars, the price is low. Hopefully that makes sense. Because remember, when you're looking at the US dollar index, you're looking at the dollar compared to other currencies, not the dollar compared to value in and of itself, or the dollar compared to its 1913 value. We know that since 1913, the dollar's lost about 97.5% of its value. You can't tell that from the US dollar chart because we're comparing it to other currencies. But you can see when priced in silver, which is real money, you can see what happens. And other currencies are weaker, so the silver price has gone up. That doesn't happen in the dollar because it's the world reserve currency. The price goes down, especially when adjusted for inflation. And this is why the three main reasons that I gave, go over those again. Increased finance costs required for more dollars for servicing debt. Why the dollar is the US world reserve currency. Capital inflows to emerging markets decrease as the dollar rises, causing more exchange out of the currencies into the dollar. Again, that's more demand for the dollar. That's why when we go back to the chart, we've had surging demand for the dollar dating back to about 2014. And the third reason is that investors move money from foreign banks to US banks to take advantage of newfound yield. So what I wrote back in 2018, it still stands. We're still in a fairly bullish dollar market when compared historically on a historical timeline. And that's causing silver to be priced more in the weaker currencies, but less in the dollar, especially when adjusted for inflation. And that's why when you have Western dominated markets trading the metals, you see lower prices. You'll see higher gold and silver prices in other currencies because they're not the world reserve currency. There's less demand for those currencies. Those currencies are weaker given international trade patterns. But in the dollar, the price comes down because you can facilitate trade on that one market, like on the COMEX in London, for example, and you can drive that price down in US dollar terms. It's still going to be high in the weaker currencies, but it's going to be low in the US dollar. Net effect of that means that it's more expensive to get silver locally in some of these economies than it is in the US. It's good for the US. The problem is it causes a problem with the world economy because we've misallocated the price of silver essentially to the world economy. And if it seems cheaper, we're going to use more of it. We could run out of supplies. And that's why we're hitting that silver cliff where we're running out of those proven and probable supplies of silver, and we're having to mine more silver. And a lot of that comes as a byproduct of things like copper. So that is a little bit of lesson for you on the dollar index, how that affects commodities, how that can distort prices. And if you want more, here on my website, if you become a subscriber and click this become a subscriber button, you can go to Gold Silver Universities, and we have a whole section on this. When you come here to the university, there is a video on understanding commodities in the dollar, and I explain all of this in greater detail. So if you're interested in learning that, we're more than happy to teach you. Just go over to Gold Silver Pros and subscribe there, and you will get that information. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share here for a moment, turn my attention over to the chat. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate you very much for being on the program. Looks like we have a lot of users here on a Sunday. Again, welcome to all our UK and European subscribers. Appreciate that. I'm going to see if we have any comments here in the chat. Thank you, Batman, for saying hit the like button. I appreciate that. We've got Kevin saying he bought silver and gold Saturday. Good job, Kevin. Good to see that. We need to keep that up, especially if we want to keep up the SilverSqueeze. And yes, I do believe in the SilverSqueeze, even though some people have said they don't believe it working. It's working. I think I've proven in the last week that it actually is. And if you guys have questions, throw those up in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer them. In a few moments, we're going to get here to the meme section of the broadcast. I want to have a little fun here. I don't want to be super serious all the time. There have been some really great memes going around Twitter and Wall Street Silver. Yes, we're going to get into the Suez Canal here a little bit with some of these memes and just have a little bit of fun. It's Sunday afternoon. We don't have to be too serious. Let's see if we have any questions. What do you think is really happening with mints? That's a question from Boomer Sooner Fan 03. I honestly think that they're running out of immediate supply, especially in silver. I don't think that's the case with gold right now, but I do think that's the case with silver. We've seen the Perth Mint and the issues they've had with their supply not delivering within that 2 to 10 day time frame, depending on what document you're looking at, that they say they will. Of course, that's my understanding is that's an unallocated trade, so it's not guaranteed. I also saw something come out on both Wall Street Silver and separately from another person reporting this from Australia on Twitter that ABC Bullion was also having issues delivering on the metal. So there are signs, I think, that there are shortages there. Of course, we saw what happened in the beginning of the year with the run on SLV. Then people figured out SLV wasn't the place to squeeze silver, so they went and bought up all the retail. This happened in January, February, and we've been short on retail ever since. It's been high premiums ever since. Stanley Steamer asks, what's your favorite song right now, Rob? I'm really a classics guy, so I'll go classic rock. I do like country. I like, right now I'm listening to Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Blue on Black is one of my favorite songs. And that was recently redone by Five Finger Death Punch, who actually had him playing guitar in their cover of that. And it was actually really, really good. So a little bit edgier version, Five Finger Death Punch of Kenny Wayne Shepherd song Blue on Black. That's a little bit of Louisiana blues and rock and roll for you. But I'm a wide-ranging music guy. I've actually been, when I get in the truck, I've started to listen to a lot of classical. It's very calming, helps me think. So anything Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, I'm interested in. Is the Perth Mint silver stuck in the Suez Canal? It's entirely possible. I think the Suez Canal thing has more to do with international trade. I was watching a video a friend of mine sent to me yesterday on that, and they were reporting that 10% of global trade went through the Suez Canal and that it would hamper China and Russia. And given all the geopolitical things going on, I'm wondering if there's a geopolitical slant to what's going on with the Suez Canal. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. How much gold and silver travels through the Suez Canal on an annual basis? Fred, that is a very good question. I honestly do not know, but if anybody knows that question, send that over to me. With all of the private sales and things like that, I'm not sure. I know a lot of it is flown on planes when it does move. I'm sure there's probably a fair amount that does go through the Suez Canal, especially if it's going to go from like North America, South America, or from one side of the continent to the other. Fleetwood Mac, Don't Stop Believing. Yeah, I think Journey's Don't Stop Believing, really, really good song. Anything by Fleetwood Mac is good. I agree with you there. Urban Sombrero asks, Rob, the unallocated silver and rehypothecation is a scandal that can really benefit the physical market. Do you think we should highlight it more? Yes, we do, and we highlight that all the time. I've talked about unallocated versus allocated. I've also talked on COMEX, their version of that, which is something different. It's called eligible stocks versus registered stocks. I've pounded on that for months. I do think that we need to keep talking about it. Victor Scale says, when does the fraud end? I worked hard to keep what I have. There are leaders print easy money. Yes, Victor, but I think that ends eventually. All fiat currencies and histories have eventually either hyperinflated or just died. I believe Austrian economists have covered this very well. They're the specialists in this area, and I believe the dollar will eventually die. And of course, we have other nations moving into non-dollar trade. They've got gold for oil. They have Chinese yuan. China's establishing the Belt and Road Initiative, connecting 73% of the world's economy. The U.S. is not a part of that. So I do think that things are being set up in the background for the dollar eventually to fall. And when that happens, I think that's when we're going to see the death of the current system. It could be a couple of years yet, but I think we're getting closer. Commodity super cycle, what you say, says Alton. Yes, I said that recently in a couple of videos. I was a guest on someone else's program, and in one of my videos on the channel, we are in a commodity super cycle. You can see the prices rising. Copper was up over $4. That's like an 8 or 9 year high. You've seen zinc. You've seen a lot. You've seen uranium price come up even, and that had been really suppressed for a long time. You're seeing a lot of commodity prices come up. And if you look at a broad commodity index, I think twice in the last month, I've shown the Bloomberg Commodity Index, and that index is just steadily rising. I think it's almost at a 10-year high. So it's very clear that we have inflation and we are in a commodity super cycle. All right, see if we have another question before I move on to the memes. Captain Siltblood says, from 2016 to 2018, the dollar melted up and gold went with it. What is different now? I don't think anything is really different now. I do know that there are overall more dollars printed. A lot of that's hidden. If you look at Dr. Mark Skidmore, he talks it's like over 100 trillion now in undocumented adjustments or hidden money coming out of the U.S. government. We can talk about that. I don't think there's a big difference other than that we're a couple of years farther on in the system. And so it's basically the same thing or another wave of the same thing, the same overall. All right, let's get back to the presentation. Let's go share some screen, have some fun with some memes. I do love the memes. So the first one, let me get my meeting control hidden. I'm going to go to my Twitter and Wall Street Silver. Of course, we just talked about this a minute ago, but I wanted to get credit to Wall Street Silver. If you guys have not joined that channel, join. They're up to a lot of members. I'll show you here in a minute, and they're growing fast. Breaking news, Perth Mint out of bullion for the next 3 to 6 months. Here's an eyewitness report of somebody saying that their brother wanted to buy some physical gold. They get the order through. They told me there's no bullion for the next 3 to 6 months. I've been buying regularly from them in the past, and they used to tell me, look, we're out of stock, but we're getting something next week. Now it's 3 to 6 months. So there's an independent report from Wall Street Silver, someone saying, hey, we're not getting it for 3 to 6 months. Then we have something in Australia from John Adams. Those of you who don't know, followed John Adams on Twitter. He's excellent when talking about the Australian markets. He says, in breaking news on March 26th this week, industry insiders have confirmed with me this morning that in the past 5 days, Australians in unprecedented numbers are dumping synthetic, unallocated, and pull allocated products and are standing for physical, meaning they're getting smart. We're getting out of these unallocated products and we're going for the physical. We're saying, give me the real. I don't want to buy this derivative investment in the precious metals. So the movement to drain physical gold, silver is underway. That's not the first report we've had of that, so I do tend to agree. Here's the funniest meme I saw this week. I nearly spit my Coke out all over the monitor. For those of you who have been stacking for a long time and have ever had your spouse comment on it, this is a great meme. You spent $16,000 on silver. Honey, I'm trying to take down the Perth Mint. Great meme, very timely. And for us stackers, have been doing this for a long time. We're down with you on this one. We know exactly how that feels to have our spouses say, really, is it enough? But really, it's never enough when you're trying to take down the market. Here's another one that I love from Wall Street Silver. I'm just going to really borrow a lot of stuff from Wall Street Silver today. My silver from Perth Mint stacked. Am I in trouble? That's awesome. Just imagine all of these being silver cubes. That might be all the silver available in the world if this are really silver. Greatness. And it looks, look at it, it's bigger than the pyramids. Well, I guess they're off in the distance, but great meme in the time of the Suez Canal issues. Hilarious. Another one I really like, and this is an old picture from the hyperinflation in Weimar, Germany, like back before World War II. This is when the German currency was basically worth more to burn. She's putting this in an oven to heat the home than it was to spend. This is what a hyperinflation looks like. Germany has historically had a very strong economy. And essentially, if you're burning currency like that, that's major for a major world economy. Germany is really the engine for the European economy. And that's happened in Zimbabwe. It's happened to other places as well. But that's a really good meme to bring up. It's an old one, but a good one, because it reminds us what happens to all fiat currencies. Lastly, I wanted to congratulate Wall Street Silver. They are now 48,000 strong. This has happened since, I guess, back in late January. They have been absolutely knocking out of the park. The reason I bring this up on the video is because a lot of people have been telling me that the millennials and younger generation aren't really pushing the silver thing. And I've had conversations, this channel, with the founder and with people involved in that movement. And I've had conversations with people who are millennials who are buying silver hand over fist. We've had video testimonials of people around the world who are in their 20s buying silver. The younger generations are a large part of that. So I want to give kudos to them. I want to give kudos to Wall Street Silver for pushing this market forward. The fact that the younger generations have figured this out, I think, is a really, really good thing, because it means that they're getting savvy overall to the game of what's going on. And I think that it's good news that they're learning what good, honest money is. Just looking over here at the chat for any questions for you guys. That's really going to be it for the presentation. I'll stay here and answer a few questions for you. Again, wanted to throw out appreciation for my overseas followers. We have just smashed it on the European and UK followers. Of course, we have some Australian followers as well. I have some people from over in Asia. We get people from Hong Kong and Singapore, which is totally awesome. Love to see, the worldwide stretch of our channel. Let's see what else we got on the chat. We'll go back to the chat window here on the computer. Oh, Damien J says, how do you think the world looks like when you have Weimar 2.0 in the US? How are we going to pay rent and stuff like that? You will pay rent through the precious metals. Well, first you may spend your currency, because when the currency dies, people are going to try to get rid of it. You want to get rid of whatever currency you have left. So if you have 10,000, 1,000, 200 $1 bills, whatever it is, spend that first. And that's what people are going to recognize first. Once they figure out that's worthless, they're going to look for other things. They're going to go to barter, and they may go to precious metals as well, because precious metal has historically been money. And I think if you have small denomination silver, that may be how you exchange it for whatever the currency of the day is, or you may barter it directly for things that you need, for medicines, for food, for gasoline, whatever the case may be. And I think gold is going to be more for big purchases, because I think gold is going to be extremely valuable. Good comments from people about how they buy their metals, and share a little bit with their wives, but don't tell them. Higher or lower at open? I think there's a Boomer Sooner fan asking about the silver price at the open. I always want to say higher, because I think that this is when the general market trades before the big banks come in, and generally the banks will smash it on a Monday. That's generally been the pattern. Doesn't mean that's going to happen, but I would have to defer to history and say I think it's going to be a little bit higher. I think it's going to have some positive momentum. Let's see. How do I, Mike Foley says, how do you only have 21,500 subscribers? Well, that's a good question. We focus on YouTube and Twitter, and we are now starting to build out on other social media channels as well. So we started a Rumble channel, and we're going to build that out. I think 21,000 is a lot. In fact, I haven't brought this up on the channel, but we wanted to celebrate the fact that we got over 20,000. We got over 20,000 this month. We've got over 5,500 Twitter subscribers. And if you add the website subscribers in, we're over 30,000, well over 30,000 subscribers total for Gold Silver Pros. We're extremely excited about that. Thank you to everyone who has pushed us over that amount. My goal is for us to hit 50,000 total for this year in 2021. I definitely think we can do it. And it really is up to you guys. If you guys would share and thumbs up on the videos and tell your friends, help us spread the word. That certainly would help us grow a little bit faster as well. Gold Silver Pros, are the shorts decreasing now? from Willem Develter. Now, I did do a video a couple of weeks ago when we looked at the COT report, the Commitment of Traders report. And yes, there was some reduction overall in the amount of shorts on the futures market. Some of the bullion banks were positioning themselves less short, and some of the managed, well, not the managed money, but the other reportables, the wealthy individuals, sovereign wealth funds and such, were positioning themselves more long. So we thought potentially silver was going to be allowed to go long. Net, though, the bullion banks are still overall short. So relatively speaking, they're still, they're reducing shorts, but we're nowhere near where the market has conclusively flipped to the long side. We're not quite to that point yet. I'm sure we're going to have other questions in here. I'll follow on Twitter right now. Come and take it. Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. Love our Twitter followers. Twitter's a great community there. YouTube's a great community. Twitter's a great community. We really appreciate it. That's where we spend most of our time, on YouTube and Twitter. Please join us there. Lots of good content on Twitter as well. Say hi to Turkey, Altan Yildirim. Hopefully I said your name correctly. So hi to Turkey. How are you guys doing, my Turkey followers? You bring expert opinion like the channel. Thank you so much, Dale. We appreciate that comment. Hi from the UK. Hi, Ian. How are you doing? Good to see you here from the UK. Love to see my UK guys get in there. That's why we don't want to do these daytime live streams. We're thinking about doing one every Sunday. If you guys want us to do one every Sunday, let us know. We would be happy to accommodate. It's an easy day for us to do it, a weekend day, so lots of people will show up. Alan Krentz asks, have you heard anything about Goldman Sachs scandal? Something about a pump and dump supposed to be in the news this week. We understand. Have you heard anything about that? I have heard about Goldman Sachs getting out of some of their shorts. I haven't heard anything about a pump and dump scandal, but you know what? If they're reversing their shorts and going long, it could be that they're taking advantage of the low prices. That can be one in two ways. You can wash out people at a certain spot in their futures positions by influencing the market. You can also make money on the options by going in the money on an option. So say the price is going to rise, you would go long on that option. You would reduce your shorts. You would allow the price to rise a little bit, and you would make money both ways. So the banks basically play it both ways. Corona says Sundays are awesome. Good stuff. Scott Reed asks, do you think yield curve control will happen? Well, Scott, my opinion is we've always had yield curve control. Dating back to, I want to say it was late summer 2018, we had the global debt yield control, the yield curve. Let me slow down. The difference between the 10-year and the 2-year for world issued debt had inverted, not the US, but world issued debt. The US a few months later also inverted. I can't remember if that was late 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2018. But I could be off by a couple months. Briefly, the 10 to 2-year US Treasury yield inverted briefly. And then all of a sudden you started to see the way that the Fed was purchasing treasuries, the way that those were bought up in auctions, the yield curve stopped being inverted, and there was a spread between the 10-year and the 2-year. And I think that was yield curve by the Fed in conjunction with Treasury. I think they've been managing the yield curve for basically since 1971 and probably before that, but earnestly since 1971 when we got off the gold standard. So all of this talk about yield curve control is basically the Fed coming out in public and saying what they've always been doing. And they're saying it in public because the market expects it. The market is hooked on this drug, especially the stock and bond markets, of the monetary policies. And it's basically virtue signaling to the market, hey, we got to continue to do this, and we're going to continue to do it. It's basically them telling the market, we're going to support you until it dies. And everybody knows it's going to die, but they have to support it until then, or they feel like they have to support it until then, until they can get their new systems in place. All right. Do you think Musk is buying silver? Anybody that uses a lot of silver in their products would probably have contracts with some of the silver miners. It would not surprise me whatsoever if Musk is buying silver. He wouldn't advertise it though, because if Musk came out and directly said, I'm buying silver, then the market would go bazonkers, because silver is a very small market. There's a difference between saying you're buying Bitcoin, which is speculative and he doesn't need for his vehicles, and then actually saying he's buying silver, which he needs. And if it goes bazonkers, his costs go up. He would rather have Bitcoin go up so he can sell it and make money than he would have silver go up, which is an input into a critical input into his vehicles. And electric vehicles use a lot more silver and a lot more copper than regular vehicles. So Tesla and any of the electric vehicle manufacturers are very, very susceptible to the rises in the cost of silver. All right. Can the price of silver, this is from RC133122. Can the price of silver gold be reevaluated, a reverse 1934 FDR, and reevaluated to the amount of dollars in circulation? Okay, I see what you're saying. So he's saying it's a reverse in 1934. Instead of the confiscation and then the repricing of gold and silver, could the currency be repriced to gold and silver, just saying, gold and silver be repriced in currency terms to account for all the inflation of the dollar? I think that's what the question was. Yes, I think they're going to do it. I think that's part of Basel and the international banking regulations. I think that's part of the central banks buying up a lot of gold. I think they are going to revalue the currencies in the whole financial system, using gold in particular as a top tier asset. I'm not going to say tier one, because there's no such term in Basel terms or in the Basel world, but it's a top of the tier asset using physical gold. And I think silver is going to get repriced because it's money, but because there's such industrial demand. I think it's, at some point I made the call back in 2011. I wrote a series of articles on gold and silver for Seeking Alpha. And I said, and you can see this on my website. And I said, I think silver is eventually going to equal the price of gold. And I think it eventually will, for at least a short period of time, because of the industrial demand for silver. I think that, as the Chinese and Indian middle class continues to rise, as we get more to a technology-based society and a space-based economy, which we are, then I think the price of silver is going to go through the absolute roof. And I think you're going to see a lot of mining start, but there's going to be a delay because mines take anywhere from 2 to 6 to 7 years to get permitted. Even if they fast track them, it takes a long time to build infrastructure for a remote mine, build roads and water and power to get out there to get the silver. So I think you could see silver rise above gold for a little while and stay there for a little while until they can increase the mining. Yes, gold is not tier one in, although gold is basically at the highest tier. Tier one it's a label for all intents and purposes. Gold is equal to cash when allocated and hedged in the financial markets. And so you can't technically say it's tier one, but it's the equivalent of, it's the top tier. It's equivalent to cash. All right. U.S. Federal Reserve note is tier one in value retention. Rolf, I think you're being sarcastic there. All right, here we go. Should I be stacking nickels? Asks Omega Angel. You know what? I keep all my nickels. So I do have a small collection of nickels, and I keep them because nickel's worth more than the actual printed nickel is. There were rumors that the U.S. is going to get rid of the penny and the nickel because of inflation. They're not worth, the metal. They're worth less than the metal in them, and it costs the U.S. Mint more to mint them than they worth in circulation. I heard this rumor years ago. I haven't seen it happen, but we do save some of our old pennies and nickels just for collectors' purposes. Jim WDDS says, won't mines be nationalized? It's entirely possible to be nationalized especially with silver, if you consider that it could become a strategic asset, could become a strategic military asset, could become a strategic economic asset. Yes, it's possible. Do I think that they do it everywhere in the world, and does that destroy the value of the miners? No, because the governments need the miners to run the mines. They have the expertise and the geologists and all of that. So I think there could be in limited places. Would it happen in gold if you had a major international currency collapse? Yes, it could happen in gold. And some gold mines can be nationalized. I don't think it's going to be widespread. And I think if it happens, it won't happen forever. I think when it happens, when governments start managing these enterprises, they're going to realize it's better to leave it to the miners. And instead of nationalizing them, they're going to work out some sort of streaming deal where, hey, we want to buy the gold or silver at a discount and give us the gold or silver. And I think that's probably the better long-term solution. So I don't think it's going to be nationalized everywhere. I just don't think that's as much of a risk as a lot of people do. All right, guys, I think we are about to wrap it up. I have had a lot of fun today. Again, it was UK and European Appreciation Day. Feel free to step by the website if you guys are interested in learning more about the topic we had today with regards to the US dollar index and how the commodities get priced. And remember, Gold Silver Pros University for subscribers has that in more detail, along with a lot of other information. And if you subscribe to the website, you also get the quarterly newsletter, which also has our mining stock analysis there as well, and you get special content only for subscribers. It was an absolute joy, guys, talking to you today. I've got a birthday party to go to, so I'm going to go ahead and head out. Thank you guys so much for your time. Appreciate it. And until next time.